David Martinez, the man, the myth, the legend. I've wanted to try a David build since finishing the anime, and this is what I've come up with. We're going to incorporate everything that he uses in the anime, not just the Sandevistan and like punching people in the face. We're going to incorporate the pistols and everything we see him use, so let's go. If you're enjoying the Cyberpunk content, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, all that goodness, or dislike it if you don't like it. I'm really enjoying playing something other than Elden Ring at the moment, and based on the reception of these couple of videos we've been doing, I may do more. First, we'll break down my thought process for the build, and then we'll get into like the details of the attributes and perks and where you can find the cyberware and weapons that we're using after that. So chapters and all that good stuff down below. For David, I wanted to focus on everything that we see in the anime, or more or less everything that fits within like still making a cohesive build, right? So David obviously uses the Sandevistan all the time. It's the main crux that he uses in the show, but he also uses every arm attachment other than the monowire to some degree throughout the show, as well as pistols regularly as well. The issue with the Sandevistan and pistols is that your bullets still have the same travel time, like they don't speed up like you do. Now we can combat this by like getting right up close and personal with people and just like shooting them in the face when you're using pistols, or just by using the arm attachments and punching people or slicing them up, you know. So David seems to basically have the gorilla arms and the projectile launcher like at once, which we can't actually do in the game without mods. So for this build, I've decided to go with the projectile launcher, as even on very hard difficulty, you can still just punch people with your plain fists with the Sandevistan active and kill them pretty easily enough. And then you've still got the projectile launcher that you can use and combo it with the pistols. If you prefer to use the gorilla arms, you absolutely can do this, switch them out instead and pick up all the street brawler perks. And regardless of whether you are using the gorilla arms, you'll still get some benefits from some of these perks for the fists, but they'll definitely benefit the gorilla arms. And if you want to use the mantis blades like David does in one point, then pick those up and then pick up the blades perks, which I haven't done for this build. So for pistols, I'm either using the Lexington, which David gets gifted by Main early in the anime, or the HGK11 Yukimura, which he switches to later on. I believe David does this because he does make a comment that he's never been really good with guns, and he ends up using a smart weapon like this pistol, which seems to fit him perfectly because, you know, it alleviates his poor like accuracy with weapons. So they're the kind of main weapons that we're using, and the smart pistol for ranged, and then you can combine it with the projectile launcher. I'm also using Johnny's gun just because it's my favorite gun in the game and it's a pistol, so it fits well with this build, but you could swap it out for whatever. Like even a shotgun would go nice for like this close range build, especially if you wanted to use like Rebecca's shotgun, for example, right? On to attributes. Now I am using 18 body, 18 reflexes, and 18 technical ability. You will need some of these, especially in body and reflexes, to hit the requirements in order to use the Sandevistan, as well as some of the other items that we're using in the Cyberware line. So that's primarily why I've gone that route. In the body line in athletics, because David is relatively like a powerhouse in the way that he buffs himself, I've focused a lot on armor and health benefits, as well as just like increasing your overall like potential to survive hits, right? Do you know what I mean? So in athletics, we're picking up all the health benefits and the ability to reload while sprinting and vaulting, and shoot while sprinting and vaulting, those kind of skills which seem very David-esque to do, that he does do in the anime. And the street brawler perks for your fists, as well as for the gorilla arms. If you're going to use them, you can just copy the ones that I've got on the screen here. And for reflexes, the main things we're focusing on here is in the handgun lines, and you want practically every perk that's in here more or less, and buffing them out like if they require multiple perks to do so, like Gunslinger and High Noon for that crit damage chance. Rio Bravo is really good for this build as well, because you can just like walk up to people and headshot them in the face with Sandevistan active. Maximizing that multiplier is also really important. In technical ability, we're using this for crafting, as well as some of the engineering perks like lock and load, which will increase the reload speed of your smart weapons. Insulation and grants you immunity to shock, and we're going to be immune to basically all status effects in one way or another as part of this build as well, to build up that kind of invincible aspect of David's kit that we pretty much see throughout the game. And also pick up Blade Runner here to increase your damage to drones, mechs, and robots. In the cool line, we're picking up 14 cool here, which is basically just dumping every other stat that we have into cool. Now in the ninjutsu, the only thing you want to pick up here is assassin to deal 15% more damage to human. You could pick up some other things like the crit chance upon entering combat, which I have been tinkering with, and it's not a bad perk, but you know, you don't necessarily need it. Cold blood is the main thing we want from this line, because cold blood's just beneficial beneficial for any build, but we're mainly focusing on the range potential of activating Cold Blood like Easy Out, as well as the armor like Defensive Clot and Will to Survive, so we can increase our armor and survivability while reducing some of the damage we take, but then also improving our weapon damage. And then if you are going like the melee route, you could switch some of these perks out for the melee focused ones, but that's really up to you. Moving on to the cyberware that we're using and where you can find all of these goodies, the Quiant Sandevistan is probably the best Sandevistan in the game, and it fits closely with David's kind of setup because of its low cooldown. Now you can pick this up from Fingers. Depending on some story decisions, he may not sell you this after that point, but you can pick up other legendary ones. There's like 4 different legendary Sandevistan, so he may not sell it to you depending on those decisions that you make. Once you've got a Sandevistan that you like, you want to go to the Ripperdoc in Santo Domingo because he will sell you the heatsink mod that will reduce the cooldown of your Sandevistan. Now, I have seen people pick this up at like a legendary tier, but I couldn't get the legendary tier to spawn for me, and it took me ages to even get him to have the crafting spec. So if he's not got it, then if you just like skip time a couple of times and like reload the area, he will eventually have one of the crafting specs for you to buy, so then you can craft your own of the heatsink mods to reduce the cooldown. The projectile launcher and really the gorilla arms or the mantis blades, if you want to get the legendary versions of either of those, the Ripperdoc in Haywood will sell you them, so you can pick up them from him. He will also sell you the sin lungs that David uses, so you can grab them while you're there as well. There's a couple of other like interesting mods that you can use. He has some of them for sale at like an epic tier 2, but you should also get the legendary version of the bioconductor, which you can get from the Nomad Cap. This does move depending on Panam's quest, but the Ripperdoc here will sell you the legendary version, which will reduce the cooldowns of your cyberware even further, so you can get those like Sandevistan attacks off relatively quickly. Or you can also pick up like the double jump as well. David doesn't use this. He uses like the hold spacebar to like jump higher, but I just prefer double jump, so that's really up to you. When you are scoping out these vendors, check what else they have for sale, because a couple of them will have like the suppressive weaves that you can put on. So I've put on the one that removes bleeding and the one that removes burn, so I'm essentially immune to like most of these status effects, as well as I've got the skeleton that increases my health and the one that the neofiber that increases my mitigation chance. So all this stuff to really make me much of a powerhouse as possible is the benefit to David, because you know, in the later stages of the anime, he is essentially just this giant powerhouse that can survive like anything. In terms of weapons, we'll talk about the 2 main ones. Now, the Lexington that he has in the show doesn't exist in the game, but you can get the legendary version of the Lexington from the Nomad Camp. So while you're there picking up your cyberware, jump to the vendor and grab the legendary Lexington. And the Yakamura Smart Pistol, you do get just the epic version from leveling up your crafting, but if you want the legendary version, it's available from an NCPD interaction in the Haywood, the Glen area. If you go there, there's an NCPD like crime activity section, and if you clear that, like the leader in that group will have the crafting spec for the legendary version, which you can then craft and then upgrade. So that's kind of why we're using the crafting perks, as well as they're just general value to use in for the most part. Getting all of these certain pieces in the legendary gear is super expensive, so if you're just picking up like epic pieces and like common pieces to like fill out until you get to the point where you can grab all this legendary stuff, then there's nothing wrong with that. Like I wouldn't focus on too much like, oh, I can't afford like half of these legendary pieces. If you've got like some of the commons or epics, whatever, use them. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. As long as you're like fitting in with this build and like trying to make that David Martinez style play, then you'll be absolutely fine. I also like how David does multiple things. Like he uses pistols and then sometimes he does melee, and it makes it a little bit more flexible and fun. You know, I always struggle with builds that are just so like laser focused on doing one specific thing. They eventually get boring to me. I like to have a bit of flexibility in my playstyle. Like maybe I want to do some ranged and like, you know, hide behind cover and like shoot people with my smart pistol, or like run up close and smack them around with my fists. And I think David really fits that kind of style that I like, and that's why I've tried to incorporate that into this build. If you'd like me to do more of these builds, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.